Hi, and welcome to Investment Banking University's Independent Investment Banker course. Really excited to have you tuning in. This is going to be a pretty long course. There's about 90 plus lessons, and we're going to take you really from start to finish on what you're going to need to be an independent investment banker and be successful. So we're going to start this with lesson one. It's going to be an introduction to the capital management game because we're going to see how an investment banker plays and what role they play in the capital management game from a broader sense. We have different players, whether that's strategic, capital sources, financial advisors such as investment bankers, how they really come together to create a game in who can, really maximize the returns for capital. And so we're going to talk about that and hop right in. So the objective of capital management, clearly, we're talking about maximizing wealth. The primary goal in capital management is to strategically allocate resources to maximize returns while minimizing risks. And there's going to be a strategic decision making. This involves making informed decisions and calculated decisions based upon market conditions, really where the data's at and where the analysis has been done to generate insights, and so we can make the best decisions possible on how to realize real returns. So we need to understand market dynamics, market trends, economic indicators, etc. But the key personas in the capital management game, as I just alluded to, we're going to be strategic capital. So these are going to be like enterprises and conglomerates that are, investing from a strategic standpoint on how to build superior algorithms with the assets they have to deliver solutions to solve problems, and in solving those problems, generate real returns. They also engage in M&A, and we're going to talk a lot about that in this course. And then there's also financial capital. So we're talking about institutional investors such as hedge funds, private equity firms, all focused on generating high returns. And then finally, we've got the personal capital or high net worth investors, and they are, really focused on wealth preservation and growing it in terms of diversified investments as well. So these three come together, and we can also talk about other more governmental funds, whether we're talking about wealth funds out of the Abu Dhabi, Dubai, GCC type countries. Really exciting stuff. Areas of opportunity for growth as well. We see a lot of that in the marketplace today. But when we're talking about capital mandates, each and every one of these key personas has different strategic mandates or investment mandates within which they deploy capital. And we need to, as investment bankers, we really need to understand, hey, what sort of projects do these folks take on? What sort of organizations or enterprises do they fund? What do they not fund? And what is aligned to that investment mandate? So we're going to get into a lot to that in this course here, but there's predefined rules or guidelines that dictate buy and sell decisions for each type of capital. And there's also going to be rate and multiple considerations when it comes to specific criteria in terms of an acceptable, investment rate or multiple. And then there's also going to be influence on strategic alternatives. So these mandates shape the potential strategies and investments available to capital managers, within which shape those investment decisions. And investment bankers play a huge role when it comes to coming up with ideas for strategic alternatives, generating the analysis and the insights necessary to make educated decisions, and then ultimately fulfilling those transactions or running that transaction in order to facilitate the investment. So we're going to start out with strategic capital. The definition and characteristics, we're talking about long-term focus, primarily used for long-term growth initiatives, really focused on real returns or EPS growth. It's kind of a proxy for that. So in terms of investing in acquisitions, mergers, and other corporate development activities, those are very real things in the marketplace today. There's also corporate holders when it comes to enhancing their market position with regard to conglomerates. We'll talk a little bit about that. And in terms of the capital mandates, clearly we're talking about strategic fit. We're going to chat a lot about synergies in this course, but really the synergy is 1 + 1 equals more than 2, right? That's the idea that two organizations coming together can benefit from either a cost or a revenue synergy to add more incremental value to the organization from a real return standpoint. So in terms of strategic alternatives, each corporate M&A department is going to be involved in option generation, and that's where an investment banker kind of plays a role to help generate those options. to figure out what is the best way to deploy our strategic capital to the highest and best use. So we're going to get involved in benefit quantification, the analysis work that's done, insight generation accordingly, and then prioritizing and ranking alternatives based upon strategic alignment and expected returns. When it comes to financial capital, we're talking about return-oriented, maximizing returns for investors. There's another challenge or wrinkle in the financial capital in that they have investors themselves. So whether it's hedge funds, mutual funds, or private equity firms, they typically will have time horizons, whether it's short to medium term, to realize those returns and then return capital to their to the limited partners that they have. In terms of capital mandates, we have specific ROI targets, in terms of returns, risk management as well. Financial metrics are a factor there. And in terms of the same thing on the strategic side, they need to find opportunities with favorable metrics, compare the risk to the return, and ultimately build that business case for that strategic alternative. And in terms of high net worth or private capital, clearly we're talking about, whether it's a family office, et cetera, it's the ability to generate alternatives for those folks and be able to manage the wealth of high net worth individuals. Going to have diversified portfolios. There may be some strategic capital, some financial capital aspects to it, but suffice it to say that that's a very real part there. So when we're talking about generating strategic alternatives, we're really getting into option generation for each of these type of capital sources. So, each and every persona has a different mandate, if you will, and the strategy development there is important, aligned with the capital mandate accordingly, and then being able to engage in the evaluation process in terms of benefit quantification, alternative ranking, and building that business case for that ultimate decision to the investment committee or board. Investment bankers play a huge role in the capital management game when it comes to facilitating, option generation and raising financing for different enterprises, et cetera. There's a lot of different services, whether it's advisory services on strategic alternatives, M&A, financial analysis that's done, the analytical type work, deal structuring, running the deals, and ultimately there's capital raising and growth advisory as well. So really what we're trying to do in the capital management game is achieve the best use of capital in order to generate the highest returns relative to the amount of risk. Take advantage of any arbitrages that are available as well. And that is what's involved there is also pitching for business, which investment bankers will do in order to run that process, and then ultimately closing deals. So when we're talking about strategic capital management, we already chatted about that in terms of the capital mandate. Really, there has to be a strategic fit and synergies in order to realize a real return, an EPS growth, whether it's supposed to be accretive rather than dilutive. We'll talk about what that means. But ultimately, we're trying to get into target identification, strategic fit assessment, and ultimately building that business case. With financial capital management, we're getting into risk return analysis. Does this investment opportunity, can we enter capital and exit capital in a reasonable way, at the same multiple or better, and ultimately realize our returns accordingly. And then the same thing goes for high net worth investors, realizing personal financial goals. There's other considerations, tax and estate planning, income needs of the family, etc. So, just a summary here in the capital management game, there are different players and different dynamics, different investment mandates, but the investment banker plays a strategic role in generating alternatives in addition to raising capital or any capital needs here. So guys, this is going to be a long, awesome course. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning, and looking forward to lesson 2 with you. Thanks.